I am very, very excited to introduce Philippe Galeano from Thales AV, who's here to talk to us about shifting left, I assume, how to approach product decisions with cost in mind.
Exactly, yes.
And the FinOps Foundation actually just published a paper a week or two ago called Cost-Aware Product Decisions. And I'm sure you saw JR talk about this in the keynote this morning. So very timely
Yeah,
topic.
exactly.
You can take your place right up on the stage and we'll get started.
Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for joining the session. I'm very pleased to be there. It's a great event and very interesting session, and I'm quite sure that on Thursday we'll come back home with very good insight. So we'll speak about design by cost, but before that, let me give you a bit of context about my company, Thales, and more especially about my business line, in-flight experience. So basically, we are working for the passenger within the aircraft. So that means that our customers are the main airline company all around the world. We are based in 6 main places, US, with Irvine in Melbourne, Bordeaux in France, Singapore, and India. We are working for the passenger with 2 kinds of products. First, connectivity, and second, entertainment. Connectivity, that means the capability for the passenger to access to internet through satellites. And entertainment, this is what the passenger have in front of them that allows them to play games, to watch movies, and more to access to some services. You could wondering, where is the cloud there? In fact, what you should understand is that from now, this kind of solution is both on board and on the ground, so in a cloud. And this is especially the case with our last solution called Flight Edge. You could see what is on board as an extension of the cloud, based on cloud technology that allow us to deploy very quickly and easily any service you could find in the cloud, and especially the OTT providers such as Netflix, Disney+, etc. What we will be able to do in the cloud? First, analyze what the passenger have done on board, what kind of movies they have seen, for example, and also more globally to maintain the solution, meaning monitoring it, but also upgrade the solution over the air, adding some new services and uploading some new content, new movies, new ads, again over the air. We are working with 2 cloud providers, AWS and Azure, and we have started the FinOps initiative in 2021. With a strong principle, we believe that the FinOps approach should be transversal. This is why I have no team, but a virtual team. I'm working with DevOps team, CCO team, but also financial teams. When I've started in 2021, I should say that I was quite new in this kind of job. Previously, I was working as a project manager. So working with a virtual team was quite usual for me. What was new is that nobody within my organization knew what was a FinOps. And to be honest, nobody was very interested by that. So my first step has been to show what was the value of a FinOps. And little by little, people have started to come to me. The CEO started to call me Money Man, which is not so bad, I guess, for FinOps. And the marketing team asked me, you know this product we are developing? It was Flight Edge, the entertainment system I've shown you. Could you tell me what will be the cost of this solution once on production? And it was quite a crazy question for me, because first, I didn't get the answer. I mean, I had only the cost on the development environment, which is not very similar to the production one. And second, I thought they already had the answer. They had a budget. But the truth is that infrastructure within a budget is just a line between others, done with very high-level assumption. And once it's done, nobody touches anymore this budget. And this is why and how I've started to build a costing model. And what I've discovered is that, in fact, it was not just only a tool for the marketing team to estimate the running cost. but also a great tool to influence the architecture of the solution, to make a kind of design by cost. And from now, we are building a costing model for each new product. To be honest, we are still not very mature on this approach. But even if we are not very mature, we have been able to make some really great saving by applying some very simple principle. And this is what I would like to show you today. So first, what I'm calling the design by cost. This is the capability to make a change on a product architecture based on cost, only on cost, and during all the product life cycle, design and development phases, but also during the running phase. And when I'm speaking about architecture change, in fact, it's quite abusive, because, of course, we'll speak about architecture change, but we'll also speak about more simple principles, such as use a service instead of one other, I mean a cloud provider service, make a change on a service setup, or even to make a simple code review. The first step will be to build this costing model. And for that, we need several inputs. First, the architecture, even if it's not finalized. Based on that, we'll have some tarification plan, and we'll need some technical metrics, assumption on technical metrics. I mean, volume of CPU, volume of transaction, volume of storage, etc., etc. For that, we'll use some business metrics. For me, business metrics is the volume of aircraft, volume of passenger, what kind of feature we'll develop, and so on. The idea is to derive these technical metrics from the business metrics. And clearly, this is a tricky point. I mean, for some of them, it's quite easy. If I'm speaking about the content, I know what kind of content I will manage within the aircraft. I know what will be the renewal rate for this content within the aircraft, so that at the end, it's quite easy for me to estimate what will be the need in terms of storage on the ground. But for others, such as the volume of CPU, it's not so easy. Even if you know exactly what are the features you will develop, it's very difficult to estimate the workload. So this is where you will need the help of the DevOps team. This is where also the POC, often we have some POCs that are already running, could give you some good insight. And similarly, you could have some product already running with some similar feature. They could give you, again, some good insight. At the end, you will be able to estimate a cost. Of course, this cost won't be perfect at all. But this is not very important, because first, this is the trend which is important, more than the cost itself. And second, this costing model, you will improve it again and again. For example, the stress test is a good moment to challenge this costing model. Based on that, what you will be able to do? First, you will be able to influence the architecture. Each time, the architect will have several scenarios in mind. You should estimate the cost of each of these scenarios to be sure that at the end, the architect will take into account the cost in his decision. Second, and in fact, I think it is even more important, you will be able to identify what are the main costs. And behind this main cost, what are the unit metrics. And the objective will be to compare these unit metrics to the value of the solution, to be sure that the unit metrics are in line with the value of the solution, even sometimes with the way you will invoice the customer. Because if these unit metrics are not in line with the value of the solution, that means that somewhere you have no connection between the cost and the revenue. So at least you have a risk and maybe you have an issue. Let me give you an example. If your solution is an order management, and if you are invoicing your customer based on the volume of orders generated by your solution, I'm quite sure that you will find some costs that are not directly linked to this volume of order generated. Taking the example of the archive of these orders, the storage cost is not linked to this volume of order generated. So maybe you have to put in place a rule to delete the oldest orders, or maybe you should put in place an option for the customer who want to keep alive these archives. And this is exactly my point. For each of these unit metrics that are not aligned with the value of the solution, you should check, you should verify that either you could consider them as a fixed cost, either you could be sure that you could keep down this cost. If it's not the case, that means you have a risk and you have to see how you can mitigate that. How you can mitigate that? First, again, you could review the architecture, even if at the end the cost will be higher. But it's more important to have these unit metrics in line with the value of the solution than to have the lowest cost. Second, you could challenge a product owner. Maybe there is some features that are useless, or maybe we could put an option for some of these features. And last point, it could be also the opportunity for you to rediscuss with the cloud provider. Let me give you an example. So this is a product which is part of our connectivity solution. Connectivity, so the capability for the passenger to access to internet through satellites. Here, the purpose of our product is to filter the traffic coming from the aircraft to internet, so to filter this traffic based on connectivity plan purchased by the passenger. So the value of the solution is on some compute resources based on the volume of passenger. But at the same time, we have a huge volume of traffic coming from internet to the aircraft. Because, for example, the passenger will use this solution to make some streaming. And we have no added value on this traffic. This is just traffic in, traffic out, that's it. But because this traffic is going through the cloud, it's generating an important cost. So we had the opportunity to rediscuss that with the cloud provider. And first, of course, he gave us some new recommendation about the architecture, but also it allows us to get some specific tarification plan for this traffic and also to get some service credits. Architecture, solution unit metrics versus solution value. Last, cost per feature. This is not something we are doing a lot today. I really think that each feature that the product owner is describing, each time the DevOps team is estimating the effort to develop the feature. I think similarly, we should, at least for the main feature, be able to estimate the running cost of this feature in order to challenge the product owner, to be sure, again, that the cost is in line with the value. Another example there. So this is a feature which is part of our entertainment system, FlightEdge. The purpose of this feature is to collect the event coming from the aircraft. And linked to this feature, we have a storage account. So this is an Azure. And the cost of this storage account, is $1 or $2 per month. Only that, nothing. But this is because this is the development environment. And the purpose of this storage account is to identify what is the last event that has been treated by the process, in order for the process to know what is the next one. What I have seen in my costing model is that the cost would have been, once on production, 5% of the global cost, which is huge compared to the global cost, of course, but also compared to the value of this storage account. Just identify an event. So, of course, I've been able to challenge the architect there, and we have been able to mitigate this cost to 0.2% of the global cost. The point I would like to highlight there is the effort. 2 days, only 2 days. But why? Because we have done that during the development phase. I'm quite sure that once on production, the effort would have been much more important. And I am even not sure that it would have been possible to make this change. So this example is showing how is it important to make this kind of investigation during the early stages. Okay, so this is for the design and the development phases. Now, what's about the running phase? Clearly, the situation is not at all the same. We know that it's very difficult to make some change on an architecture once the product is in production. But in fact, when we could demonstrate that there is a real saving to be done, we could find some sponsors. And also, often what I've seen is that at the end, the impact, the effort to make the change is not so huge. So often, this is possible to make this type of change. The difficult part is more on the fact that we should find on which part of the solution we should make some investigations. And this is where the costing model and the cost spike analysis could help us. Cost spike analysis, I mean, of course, a very detailed reporting, because it's quite difficult to detect the cost spike if you are just tracking the global cost. And you have also to put in place some alerts in order to be reactive. We should also be able to compare the cost to some business metrics in order to compare the cost to this, the volume of activity within the platform. At the end, what could we see? What could we do? First, we could see some non-expected cost. Could come from some resources that has been deployed and was not expected in the costing model. Could come from some wrong assumption on some technical metrics, or could come from some tarification plan misunderstood. Another example. So here, this is a tool which is processing some file coming from the aircraft. When we have put in place this tool on production, we have seen the cost increasing a lot, and it was not expected at all like that. The root cause was a specific step within the process. The purpose of this step was to move the file from outside the cloud to the cloud. And clearly, there is no value to spend so much money just to move some file from one place to another one. So it's why we have been able to make some change on the architecture, and we have been able to make 80% of saving. There is 2 points I would like to highlight there. First, technically speaking, the tool was perfectly working. The only reason why we have done this change is the cost, only the cost. Second, the effort, 15 days, quite important. But in fact, the impact was also quite important. But we have been able to make this change because we have been able to demonstrate that there was a real saving to be done. So when we could demonstrate that, it's possible. Non-expected cost, and then cloud provider catalog of services. Each month, the cloud provider are publishing some new services, some new options on their current services, and we could find there some opportunities to make some optimization. I have in mind, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, a serverless option for the SQL databases on Azure. We have put that in place on the non-production environment for all our solutions, and we have been able to divide per 2 the cost of the SQL databases. At the end, the impact was not so important. So this is clearly something we should have in mind. And the last point is about your usage pattern. In fact, when we are building the costing model, we are taking in account the way the product, the solution will be used. If there is a change in this usage pattern, you could see appear some new cost, some new type of cost, some new unit metrics. And again, you should check if there is a risk and if you could mitigate them. Last example. So this is about a Lambda function. So this is on AWS. And this is a Lambda function that had been put in production for several years. Suddenly, we have seen the cost increasing a lot. And the root cause was, initially, we were launching this Lambda function once a week. And we have started to launch it every second. When we are developing a feature which is used once a week, in fact, we don't care about the transaction cost. But when we are starting to use it every second, this is not at all the same story. And this is exactly what's happened here. So what we have made, we have just made a code review on this Lambda function, and we have been able to save 80% of the cost, 90% of the cost. The important point there is what? The effort, 2 days, nothing. It was not the difficult part of the job. The difficult part of the job was, in fact, to understand that we have to investigate on this Lambda function. And this is why I really think that in the future, we should, for the product already on production, be able to investigate on the right level of the level or part of the solution. And this is what is difficult to identify. Okay, so I've close to the end. I would like first to share with you the challenge I've seen and what I would like to do to make in the future. First, about the challenge. 3 points I would like to highlight. The first one is a very common topic, tagging, but I should repeat it. We should have a very detailed tagging in order to be able to, for example, to identify the cost spike and the anomalies. When I'm speaking about very detailed tagging, I mean tagging at the resource level, but also at the application service level, because more and more we have some shared services. Convince team. This is quite difficult, to be honest, to convince team to give us some time for investigation, especially for the products that are already on production. And last, this is about promoting this kind of improvement. When we are making an optimization on a product which is already in production, everybody could understand the value of what you have done. Everybody could see the cost before your optimization and the cost after your optimization. But when we are speaking about optimization during the development or the design phases, it's not so easy because we are speaking about potential saving. So this is why I think that we should also use this costing model as a reporting tool to show month after month what is the trend of this future running cost. About the next step now. The first one, I already spoke about that. I really think that in the future, we should be able to, at least for the main feature, to estimate the cost, the running cost of this feature in order to challenge the product owner. The second is about the quality of code. We know that the quality of code has a direct impact on the cost. And we have seen in the last example that, in fact, often the difficult part was not to make the change. The difficult part is to identify which Lambda function, on which Lambda function we should investigate. And this is exactly my point. And it's helped me to come to the last point, cost per service. In order to help me to know on which item, which service we should make a focus, we should investigate, I think we should be able to calculate a cost per application service. And by application service, cost per application service, I mean the compute cost of the service itself, but also the cost of the call done by the service to other services or to other resources, such as a database, in order to understand what is the most expensive services and then to know on which one we should make some investigation. Okay, I've finished. I would like just, as a takeaway, to insist on 3 points. First, efficiency. I hope I've convinced you about the efficiency of this kind of approach. Real great saving with very simple principles. But for that, to use this kind of approach, we should have a very good knowledge of our solution, functionally speaking, but also technically speaking. It's why I definitely think that FinOps is in engineering practice. And to finish, culture, of course, because I couldn't do anything by myself. I need to involve other teams, especially CCOE and DevOps team. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Philippe. Let's give him a big round of applause, everyone. That was fantastic.
Thanks for watching. Check out more FinOps X Europe content on our YouTube channel playlist. Like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and leave comments and questions for speakers to help our channel. We appreciate your support.